I was poisoning my prostate every single morning. For 3 years, I sat at my kitchen table, eating what I thought was the healthiest breakfast possible, completely unaware that every bite was flooding my prostate with inflammatory compounds that were making my symptoms worse by the day. The cruel irony? I was actually trying to eat healthy. I had just been diagnosed with an enlarged prostate at 61. My PSA was climbing, and I was determined to beat this thing naturally. So every morning, like clockwork, I'd prepare my breakfast, thinking I was doing something good for my body. I had no idea I was systematically destroying my prostate health with each meal. The worst part? My urologist never asked about my diet. Not once. 3 appointments, countless tests, and the only conversation was about surgery and medication. Nobody told me that what I was putting in my mouth first thing in the morning could be the primary driver of my inflammation. And I'll tell you exactly what this breakfast was, why it was so damaging, and how changing it became the turning point in my entire recovery. But first, you need to understand just how dangerous this particular combination of foods can be for prostate health. Most men have no idea that certain breakfast staples can trigger a cascade of inflammatory responses that directly target prostate tissue. We're talking about foods that are marketed as healthy, recommended by nutritionists, and sitting in 90% of American kitchens right now. The breakfast I was eating every morning consisted of whole grain cereal with milk, a glass of orange juice, and 2 slices of whole wheat toast with margarine. Sounds healthy, right? That's exactly what I thought. I was following every piece of conventional dietary advice I could find. Whole grains for fiber, dairy for protein and calcium, citrus for vitamin C. What I didn't know was that this combination was creating a perfect storm of prostate inflammation. Let me break down what was actually happening inside my body every morning. The whole grain cereal contained high levels of lectins and phytic acid, compounds that can trigger inflammatory responses in sensitive individuals. The milk was loaded with IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, which research has directly linked to prostate enlargement and cancer risk. The orange juice was spiking my blood sugar and creating an acidic environment that promotes inflammation. The wheat toast was adding more gluten and inflammatory proteins to the mix. And the margarine? Pure trans fats and omega-6 fatty acids that fuel inflammatory pathways throughout the body. Every single component of this breakfast was working against my prostate health. But the damage went deeper than just inflammation. This breakfast was also disrupting my hormonal balance in ways that directly impacted my prostate. The high insulin response from the orange juice and refined carbohydrates was promoting the conversion of testosterone to DHT, dihydrotestosterone, the hormone primarily responsible for prostate enlargement. The dairy was introducing external hormones and growth factors that my aging body simply couldn't process efficiently anymore. The result? My prostate was under constant attack, 365 days a year, starting first thing every morning. My symptoms were getting progressively worse. I was waking up 4 to 5 times per night to urinate. My stream was getting weaker by the month. I felt constant pressure in my pelvis. I was exhausted from the interrupted sleep, irritable during the day, and terrified about where this was all heading. My wife started sleeping in the guest room because I was keeping her awake with my frequent bathroom trips. The intimacy in our relationship was suffering because I was always worried about my bladder control. I felt like I was losing my masculinity bit by bit, and I had no idea that my breakfast routine was accelerating this decline. The turning point came during a conversation with another man at a prostate cancer support group. Now let me be clear about something. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not pretending to be one. I'm a 65-year-old retired accountant who went through prostate hell and came out the other side. What I'm sharing with you is my personal experience, combined with 3 years of obsessive research into everything I could find about prostate health and nutrition. I've read hundreds of studies, joined patient communities, spent countless hours on medical websites, and most importantly, I've lived through the transformation myself. At this support group meeting, I met Robert, a 67-year-old man who had managed to reverse his prostate symptoms naturally. When I described my morning routine to him, he nearly spit out his coffee. He looked at me like I had just told him I was drinking poison every morning, which, as it turns out, wasn't far from the truth. Robert had been down a similar path 5 years earlier. His breakfast had been even worse than mine. Pancakes with syrup, bacon, and coffee with cream and sugar. His urologist had told him surgery was inevitable within 2 years. Instead of accepting that fate, Robert had completely overhauled his diet, starting with breakfast. He explained to me the concept of inflammatory foods versus anti-inflammatory foods, and how the timing of when you eat these foods can be just as important as what you eat. He told me that breakfast sets the inflammatory tone for your entire day. If you start with inflammatory foods, you're essentially priming your body for inflammation for the next 12 to 16 hours. If you start with anti-inflammatory foods, you're giving your body the tools it needs to heal and repair itself. Robert's transformation was remarkable. Within 6 months of changing his diet, his nighttime urination had dropped from 5 to 6 times per night to 1 to 2 times. His stream strength had improved dramatically. His PSA had dropped from 8.2 to 3.4. Most importantly, he felt like himself again. His energy was back, his sleep was restored, and his relationship with his wife had recovered completely. That conversation changed my life. I went home that night and threw out everything in my kitchen that Robert had identified as problematic. The next morning, I started a completely different breakfast routine, and within 2 weeks, I could already feel a difference. But let me tell you exactly what I changed and why it worked so effectively. The first thing I eliminated was all dairy products from my breakfast routine. The research on dairy and prostate health is overwhelming. A 2005 study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that men who consume more than 2.5 servings of dairy products per day had a 34% higher risk of developing prostate cancer compared to men who consumed less than 0.5 servings per day. The primary culprit is IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. Dairy products, especially milk, contain high levels of IGF-1, and when you consume them regularly, your body's IGF-1 levels remain elevated. IGF-1 directly stimulates prostate cell growth, which is exactly what you don't want when you're dealing with an enlarged prostate or trying to prevent prostate cancer. Additionally, dairy products are acid-forming in the body, which creates an environment that promotes inflammation. When your body becomes too acidic, it leaches minerals from your bones and tissues to restore pH balance. But this process generates inflammatory byproducts that can accumulate in prostate tissue. I replace milk with unsweetened almond milk, made from organic almonds. Almonds are rich in vitamin E, a powerful antioxidant that protects prostate cells from oxidative damage. They also contain healthy monounsaturated fats that support hormone balance and reduce inflammation. The second major change was eliminating all refined carbohydrates and sugars from my breakfast. This meant no more orange juice, no more toast, and no more cereal. Refined carbohydrates cause rapid spikes in blood sugar and insulin levels. High insulin levels promote the enzyme 5-alpha reductase, which converts testosterone into DHT. DHT is the hormone that directly causes prostate enlargement. By eliminating these blood sugar spikes, I was reducing my body's production of DHT naturally. Orange juice, despite being marketed as healthy, is essentially liquid sugar. A single 8-ounce glass contains about 24 grams of sugar, which is equivalent to eating 6 teaspoons of table sugar. This sugar hits your bloodstream within minutes, creating an inflammatory response throughout your body. The citrus acid also disrupts your body's pH balance, contributing to the acidic environment that promotes inflammation. Instead of orange juice, I started my day with fresh lemon water. Lemons are alkalizing to the body despite their acidic taste. The citric acid in lemons is metabolized differently than the citric acid in oranges, and when metabolized, it actually helps restore your body's natural pH balance. Lemon water also supports liver detoxification, which is crucial for processing and eliminating excess hormones that can accumulate in prostate tissue. The third change was replacing processed margarine and bread with healthy fats and fiber. Margarine is loaded with trans fats and omega-6 fatty acids, both of which promote inflammation throughout the body. Trans fats are so harmful that they've been banned in many countries, yet they're still found in many processed foods in the United States. These fats directly interfere with your body's ability to produce anti-inflammatory compounds. Wheat bread, even whole wheat, contains gluten and other inflammatory proteins that can trigger immune responses in sensitive individuals. Modern wheat has been genetically modified to contain higher levels of gluten than wheat consumed by previous generations, and many men over 50 develop sensitivities to these proteins without realizing it. Instead, I started including avocado in my breakfast routine. Avocados are rich in monounsaturated fats, which support healthy testosterone production and reduce inflammation. They also contain beta-sitosterol, a plant compound that has been shown to improve urinary flow and reduce prostate inflammation. A 2000 study in the British Journal of Urology found that men who took beta-sitosterol supplements experienced significant improvements in urinary symptoms and peak urine flow rates. My new breakfast routine became a powerhouse of anti-inflammatory, prostate-supporting nutrients. I would start with a glass of warm lemon water to alkalize my system and support liver function. Then I'd prepare what I call my prostate protection smoothie: unsweetened almond milk, half an avocado, a handful of organic spinach, a tablespoon of ground flax seeds, a handful of blueberries, and a scoop of plant-based protein powder. Let me explain why each of these ingredients is specifically beneficial for prostate health. The spinach provides folate, magnesium, and lutein, all of which support prostate function and reduce cancer risk. Lutein is a carotenoid that accumulates in prostate tissue and acts as a powerful antioxidant. Men with higher lutein levels have been shown to have significantly lower rates of prostate cancer. The ground flax seeds are rich in lignans, plant compounds that help balance hormones and reduce inflammation. Flax seeds also provide omega-3 fatty acids, which are essential for reducing prostate inflammation. A 2004 study found that men who consumed flax seeds daily had slower prostate cancer cell growth rates compared to men who didn't consume flax seeds. Blueberries are loaded with anthocyanins, powerful antioxidants that protect prostate cells from DNA damage. They also support healthy blood flow to the prostate, which is essential for proper function and healing. The plant-based protein powder ensured I was getting adequate protein without the inflammatory effects of dairy-based proteins. One tool that really helped me stay consistent with this new routine was tracking everything daily. I found an app designed specifically for monitoring prostate health markers and dietary patterns. I put the link in the pinned comment if you want to check it out. It helped me see exactly how different foods affected my symptoms and energy levels throughout the day. The tracking showed clear patterns that motivated me to stick with the changes. Within the first month of changing my breakfast routine, the results were undeniable. My nighttime urination decreased from 4 to 5 times per night to 2 to 3 times. My stream strength improved noticeably. The constant pressure in my pelvis began to subside. My energy levels during the day were dramatically better because I wasn't experiencing the blood sugar crashes that came with my old breakfast routine. But the real proof came 3 months later during my follow-up appointment. My PSA had dropped from 6.8 to 4.2, the lowest it had been in 2 years. My urologist was amazed. He asked what I had been doing differently, and when I told him about my dietary changes, he was skeptical, but couldn't argue with the results. 6 months later, my PSA was down to 3.1, and my prostate had actually decreased in size, according to the ultrasound. My urologist admitted that he had never seen such improvement from dietary changes alone. The sleep improvement was life-changing. I was down to waking up just once per night, sometimes sleeping through the entire night. My wife moved back into our bedroom, and our relationship recovered completely. I felt like I had my life back. The research supporting these dietary changes is extensive. A 2016 study published in the Journal of Nutrition found that men who consume diets high in fruits, vegetables, and healthy fats had a 47% lower risk of aggressive prostate cancer compared to men who consume typical Western diets high in processed foods and dairy. Another study from Harvard Medical School followed 47,000 men for 18 years and found that men who consumed the most dairy products had the highest rates of prostate cancer. The mechanism is clear. Dairy products promote IGF-1 production, which stimulates prostate cell growth and increases cancer risk. The anti-inflammatory effects of the foods I added to my diet have been well documented. Omega-3 fatty acids from flax seeds have been shown to reduce prostate inflammation markers by up to 30% in clinical trials. Beta-sitosterol from avocados improves urinary flow rates and reduces prostate size in multiple studies. The antioxidants from berries and leafy greens protect prostate DNA from oxidative damage that can lead to cancer. What many men don't realize is that prostate inflammation often starts decades before symptoms appear. The foods we eat every day are either contributing to this inflammation or fighting against it. By changing your breakfast routine, you're making a choice 3 times per day about whether you're supporting your prostate health or undermining it. But I want to share some additional strategies that can amplify the benefits of changing your breakfast routine. The timing of when you eat is almost as important as what you eat. I discovered that intermittent fasting, specifically extending the time between dinner and breakfast, gave my body additional time to focus on healing and detoxification rather than digestion. I began eating dinner by 6 p.m. and not eating breakfast until 10 a.m. the next morning, creating a 16-hour fasting window. During this fasting period, my body could focus on autophagy, the cellular cleanup process that removes damaged proteins and organelles from cells. This is particularly important for prostate health because autophagy helps prevent the accumulation of cellular damage that can lead to cancer. Research has shown that men who practice intermittent fasting have lower levels of inflammatory markers and better hormone balance. Another crucial factor is hydration timing. I learned to drink most of my daily water intake in the morning and early afternoon, tapering off after 6 p.m. to minimize nighttime urination. This strategy allows you to stay properly hydrated for optimal prostate function while reducing the frequency of nighttime bathroom trips. Proper hydration is essential for flushing inflammatory compounds from the urinary tract and maintaining healthy urine flow. I also discovered the importance of food combining for optimal digestion and reduced inflammation. Eating fruits separately from other foods, rather than combining them with proteins or fats, improves digestion and reduces fermentation in the gut. Poor digestion can lead to increased inflammation throughout the body, including the prostate. I now eat my berries 30 minutes before my protein smoothie, rather than blending them together. The mineral content of your breakfast is also crucial for prostate health. Zinc deficiency is extremely common in men over 50, and directly impacts prostate function. The prostate contains higher concentrations of zinc than any other organ in the body, and adequate zinc levels are essential for proper prostate function and immune response. I added pumpkin seeds to my breakfast routine because they're one of the richest dietary sources of zinc. Just a quarter cup of pumpkin seeds provides about 17% of the daily zinc requirement. Selenium is another critical mineral for prostate health. Low selenium levels have been linked to increased prostate cancer risk in multiple studies. Brazil nuts are the richest dietary source of selenium, with just 2 nuts providing more than the daily requirement. I alternate between adding 1 Brazil nut to my smoothie and eating 2 Brazil nuts with my breakfast every other day. Magnesium is equally important for prostate health and hormone balance. Most men are deficient in magnesium, which can contribute to inflammation and poor sleep quality. Dark leafy greens like spinach are excellent sources of magnesium, which is why I include them in my daily smoothie. Magnesium also supports testosterone production and helps regulate the conversion of testosterone to DHT. The preparation method for your breakfast foods can also impact their inflammatory potential. Raw foods generally have higher antioxidant content than cooked foods, but some nutrients become more bioavailable when foods are lightly cooked. I rotate between raw and lightly steamed spinach in my smoothies to maximize nutrient absorption. For the avocado, I always consume it raw to preserve its heat-sensitive vitamins and healthy fats. One mistake I made initially was adding too many new foods at once and not paying attention to how my body responded to each change. I recommend making one change at a time and monitoring your symptoms for at least a week before adding another change. This approach allows you to identify which specific foods have the most positive impact on your symptoms and which foods might be triggering inflammation for your individual body chemistry. Some men are more sensitive to certain foods than others, so personalization is key. Temperature also matters for breakfast beverages. I learned that drinking very cold liquids first thing in the morning can shock the digestive system and potentially trigger inflammatory responses. I now drink my lemon water at room temperature or slightly warm, which is more gentle on the digestive system and better for nutrient absorption. The same principle applies to smoothies. I use room temperature almond milk rather than ice-cold milk to avoid shocking my system. Food quality makes a significant difference in inflammatory potential. Organic produce contains higher levels of antioxidants and lower levels of pesticides and herbicides that can disrupt hormone function. Conventionally grown fruits and vegetables, especially those on the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen list, can contain pesticide residues that act as endocrine disruptors, potentially interfering with testosterone and estrogen balance. For breakfast foods, I prioritize organic versions of spinach, berries, and any other produce I consume regularly. The sourcing of your fats is particularly important for prostate health. The omega-3 content of flax seeds can vary significantly depending on how they're processed and stored. I buy whole organic flax seeds and grind them fresh in a coffee grinder dedicated to seeds and nuts. Pre-ground flaxseed meal can become rancid quickly when exposed to light and air, which converts the healthy omega-3 fats into inflammatory compounds. Fresh ground flax seeds have a mild, nutty flavor, while rancid flax seeds taste bitter and can actually promote inflammation. Meal timing relative to physical activity can also impact inflammation levels. I discovered that eating my anti-inflammatory breakfast about 30 minutes before my morning walk amplifies the anti-inflammatory effects of both the food and the exercise. Light exercise after eating helps improve blood sugar control and nutrient uptake by cells, while the antioxidants from breakfast help protect against exercise-induced oxidative stress. The combination creates a synergistic effect that's more powerful than either intervention alone. Looking back on this journey, I realized that changing my breakfast routine was just the beginning of reclaiming my health. It gave me the confidence and motivation to examine other areas of my lifestyle that might be impacting my prostate health. The improvement in my symptoms was so dramatic that it inspired me to learn everything I could about natural approaches to prostate health. That toxic breakfast I was eating every morning for 3 years wasn't just damaging my prostate, it was stealing my energy, disrupting my sleep, straining my marriage, and robbing me of my confidence as a man. The beautiful thing about changing your breakfast routine is that it's completely within your control. You don't need a prescription, you don't need approval from your doctor, and you can start tomorrow morning. Every meal is an opportunity to either support your prostate health or undermine it. The choice is yours, but now you have the knowledge to make an informed decision. If my story helped you today, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe for more insights from my journey with prostate health. I share everything I learn because I know how isolating and frightening this experience can be, and no man should have to navigate it alone. And remember, the app I mentioned for tracking your dietary changes and symptoms is linked in the pinned comment below. It was instrumental in helping me identify which changes were making the biggest difference in my recovery.